There are places in this world that need no explanation. You look up, and you immediately understand why people leave everything behind to come here. Montana is one of those places. The darkest skies in America, no light pollution, no traffic noise, no Wi-Fi, only the Milky Way and true silence. The kind of silence most of us have never heard in our lives, not because silence no longer exists, but because we have forgotten how to listen to it. This is Montana at 2 in the morning, in the middle of August, 90 miles from the nearest town. No one is here. There is nothing to hear but the universe moving above your head. Montana is not paradise. It is a character test. And most people fail. Not because they are not strong enough, not because they don't have enough money, but because they don't know what they truly need. And Montana, without mercy, will show them that truth in a way no other place can. I'm not here to tell you how beautiful Montana is. You already know that. That's why you're watching this video. I'm here to ask a different question. Who are the people who truly win in Montana? And they have one thing in common that you would never expect. Nothing to do with physical strength, nothing to do with a bank balance. The answer will come at the end of these 40 minutes, and I think it will change the way you see, not just Montana, but yourself. In the next 40 minutes, I'm going to show you 3 things. 1. The ruthless natural filter that Montana uses to select its people, and it doesn't care about your feelings. 2. The Yellowstone Effect and Bozangeles. When paradise is discovered, it no longer belongs to those who need it most. 3. Emotional salary. The one thing money cannot buy, and the reason those who stay don't leave even when everything is more expensive, more difficult. Watch to the end. You'll understand yourself better than any personality quiz has ever shown you. To understand Montana, you need to start with a number. Not a pretty number, an uncomfortable one. Montana is the 4th largest state in America. Area 380,000 square kilometers, nearly the size of all of Japan. You could fit 1.5 Californias inside it and still have space left over. And the population, just under 1.1 million people. Fewer than the city of Columbus, Ohio, a city many Americans have never even heard of. This is not a random number. This is the result of a filtering process that has lasted hundreds of years, a process that nature runs, not people. What that means is, in many eastern Montana counties, population density drops to 0.4 people per square kilometer. Put another way, you and I could stand in the middle of the plains and the nearest person would be 20, even 30 miles away. This is not a scene from science fiction. This is the everyday life of thousands of Montana families, and they don't consider it unusual. They consider it normal. Because for them, space is not a deficit. Space is the core product of life here. The thing that many city people are willing to pay a great deal of money for, but never truly achieve. But empty space is only the most visible part. The part that creates the real filter is the weather. Montana has 2 seasons that outsiders rarely prepare for properly. A summer so short and beautiful it becomes addictive, and a winter so long it tests everything you think you know about yourself. In eastern Montana, winter temperatures regularly drop to -40 degrees Celsius, and that is not the record low. That is the normal range during the coldest months. In the west, mountain snow can pile level with second-floor windows. And on the plains, wind meets no obstacle. Speeds of 100 kilometers per hour are not unusual. And when the temperature is already at -30, those winds create a wind chill you do not want to experience without proper preparation. And here is what matters more than the number -40. On the Montana plains, there is nothing to block the wind. No mountains, no forests, no buildings, just flat earth and wind that never stops. Warm clothing is not enough if you don't know what you're doing. A backup plan is not enough if you haven't built a habit of preparing in advance. In many areas, if your car breaks down on a highway in winter, you have 2 choices: stay in the car and wait, or step outside and not go far. These conditions are not something you adapt to in a few weeks. They require a different way of thinking about living in nature, not beside it. The locals here make a clear distinction between those 2 things, and that distinction is a life skill, not an attitude. But the weather is only the first layer of the filter. The second, and this is what outsiders rarely picture before they arrive, is infrastructure. In many parts of Montana, the nearest hospital is a 3-hour drive away. Not 3 hours in traffic, 3 hours in the best conditions. In summer, no snow. no accidents. On a winter night with a blizzard and minus 30 degrees, those 3 hours can become 5-6 hours, or simply not reachable at all. This is not a planning problem or negligence by the government. This is the geographic reality of a state the size of Japan with the population of an Ohio city, and no budget is large enough to change geography. No Uber, no next-day Amazon delivery, no Starbucks, and in many towns, the only grocery store within 40 miles may close at 6 p.m. and not open on Sundays. Internet is unreliable, especially in winter when cables are buried under snow. There are weeks when entire towns are isolated by snow. No way in, no way out, and what outsiders often fail to understand, and this is the most important thing in this entire section, is that for people here, this is not a problem to be solved. This is the character of the place they have chosen. They knew this when they arrived, and they chose to stay because of it, not despite it. That is the most important distinction you need to carry through these 40 minutes. Montana is called the last best place. That phrase didn't come from a travel brochure. It first appeared in an anthology of poetry and prose by Montana writers, compiled by William Kittredge in 1988, and it stuck not because of marketing, but because no one could find a more accurate phrase. The last best place, not the perfect place, not the easy place. The last place still intact, the place where nature still sets the rhythm of life, not urban planning or 5G speed, and that is what draws 12 million people here every year to see even just once what the rest of America lost long ago. And to see that most clearly, you need to come to Glacier National Park. Glacier National Park. 1 million hectares of mountains, lakes, and old-growth wilderness. More than 700 lakes, many of them are turquoise that cannot be explained without seeing it in person. The color of thousand-year-old ice melting through limestone, minerals dissolving into water and creating a blue that belongs outside the range of human imagination. The Blackfeet people called this place the land of the gods thousands of years before the word Montana appeared on any map made by white settlers. Look at this and you understand why. This is a place where every time you look up, you feel yourself grow small in the right way. Not crushed, but reminded that the world is larger than any worry you are carrying. In 1910, when the national park was established, there were 150 glaciers. Today there are 25. Scientists from the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, have tracked this through photographs taken from the same angle across decades. The result is one of the clearest visual pieces of evidence for climate change you can see with your own eyes. No charts needed, no complex scientific explanation. Just look at the before and after. Scientists project that by 2030, most of the remaining glaciers will be completely gone. The word glacier in the park's name may become history within our lifetimes. I'm not including this to persuade you to any political position. I'm including it because it is proof that even Montana, the last best place, is changing in ways that are irreversible within a human lifetime. And that matters for understanding the next part of the story, because it raises a question. If even Montana's most pristine nature is disappearing, what remains pristine? The answer lies in the people, specifically the people who have chosen to live here across generations. In Montana, there are still 3 cattle for every person. Ranching, raising livestock across vast grasslands, is not a historical trade here. It is the living economy of thousands of families. Families who can name every piece of land they've worked across 4 or 5 generations. People who know the weather not from a phone app, but from looking out the window and reading the clouds, reading the wind, reading the behavior of their livestock. This is knowledge passed by word of mouth from father to child, from grandmother to grandchild, not found in books, not available in online courses. And this is the part of Montana you cannot see from Glacier or from a big ski resort. The rodeo in Montana is not a show for tourists. It is a community event where the whole town gathers, where children ride a steer for the first time, where elders watch a new generation try their hand at what they have done their whole lives. Frontier spirit is not a slogan here. It is functional living culture, knowing that if you have a problem, you solve it yourself first. Knowing that if a neighbor has a problem, you show up without being asked, without a group chat or a social media event. You simply show up.
This is what city people usually call an ideal, and in Montana, it is still a reality. This is the real Montana. Not Montana filtered through Instagram, not Montana through a 5-star resort or a Paramount series. A place where nature still sets the pace of life, not the other way around. A place where community bonds out of necessity, not trend. And a place that is standing in front of a question no one asked the native people. What happens when 12 million people a year discover this paradise? And some of them have enough money to stay forever. The thing is, when paradise is discovered, it no longer belongs to those who need it most. And this is when the Montana story becomes uncomfortable in a way that matters far more than -40-degree weather. In 2018, the Paramount Network launched the series Yellowstone, and for Montana, everything began to shift according to a slow but unstoppable logic. As millions of people watched wide-open grasslands, the Absaroka mountain ranges, dialogues about freedom and land and the meaning of life, a group of people began to think, I want that. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit and remote work became normal, that group of people stopped just thinking. They opened Google Maps and looked for a house, not out of malice, because they wanted what Montana was promising, and they had the means to make it happen. Bozeman, Montana, the largest city in the state, a college town. Montana State University is based here. Before 2019, a quiet town with affordable housing, where public school teachers could buy a home near their school, where hospital nurses lived in the city where they worked. After 2019, locals started giving their city a new name. Bozangeles, Bozeman plus Los Angeles. 2 words, one story no one wanted to tell. And that story was told not in language, but in a housing price chart. Look at this chart. The median home price in Bozeman increased by more than 80% in 4 years. In a market where local incomes did not keep pace, public school teachers in Bozeman who teach the children of Bozeman can no longer afford to rent an apartment in the city. Hospital nurses commute 45 to 60 minutes each way from cheaper towns. Local police have to choose between living near their work or living within their financial means. This is not an abstract story about the real estate market. These are specific people, with names, with families, people Bozeman needs to function, but the new Bozeman can no longer afford to keep. And who replaced them? Remote workers from California, Texas, New York, people who could work from anywhere and chose Montana for entirely understandable reasons. Nature, safety, space, meaning. They didn't arrive with the intention of breaking anything. Many of them watched Yellowstone and thought life there looked more meaningful than their own, and they acted in the way any of us would if we had the opportunity. But when Silicon Valley income meets Montana's local prices, the result is an equation that no good intention can reverse. This is not about who is good or bad. This is about how the system works. But Bozangeles is only layer 1 of the story. Layer 2 goes deeper and is spoken about less. Billionaires are buying Montana 1 mile at a time. Ted Turner owns millions of acres in Montana, one of the largest private landowners in America. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and many other names from the Forbes 400 all have a presence here. Not to live year-round, to have a ranch as a status symbol, to have somewhere to escape from the world they themselves created. And every time a billionaire buys another 1,000 acres, a multi-generational family rancher cannot compete on price, and a piece of Montana becomes private property that no one else may enter. And when billionaires buy land, they build fences. No trespassing. Roads across the grasslands that multi-generational ranchers used for decades to access their grazing land, suddenly blocked. Fishing areas that local anglers knew since they were children following their fathers to the river, suddenly private property. Montana is being privatized mile by mile, not by government but by private money. And there is no law strong enough to stop it when transactions are legal and prices are accepted. This is not a conspiracy. This is the natural result of the market, and that is what makes it harder to resolve than any conspiracy.
And if remote workers and billionaires are layers 1 and 2, then layer 3 is the oldest story and the least told. The indigenous people, the Blackfeet Nation or Niitsitapi in their own language, have lived on this land for thousands of years before the word Montana appeared on any map drawn by white settlers. They called Glacier the land of the gods, not as metaphor. That was the real name, the real address in their knowledge system for that land. As land prices rise and fences go up, the Blackfeet Nation gradually loses access to ancestral territories, not through violence as in history, but through price. A different method, the same result, and the pain is no smaller for it. I want to pause here for a moment, because this is where many videos would pick a side, either praising those who bring money to the local economy, or condemning gentrification as a crime. I'm not doing that. The Montana story is more complex than two sides, and what I want to ask you is, if you were the person who arrived in Bozeman in 2020 with a laptop, with good intentions, with a dream of living close to nature, what did you do wrong? Leave your answer in the comments right now, because your answer will matter at the end of this video.
The question is not who was wrong. The question is, when paradise is discovered, even by people with good intentions, it no longer belongs to those who need it most. This is not a problem unique to Montana, Bali, Hoi An, Lisbon, Barcelona. Every place has its own version of Bozangeles. The difference in Montana is, this is one of the last places where what is lost is not just housing prices, but a way of life. Multi-generational ranching culture. The frontier spirit of self-reliant community. The Blackfeet Nation's right to access their ancestral land. Once those things are gone, no amount of money buys them back. And this is what those who stay in Montana understand, and what keeps them from leaving. So those who still choose to stay in Montana, knowing all of this, knowing the natural filter, knowing the rising prices, knowing the community is changing, are they crazy, or do they know something we don't? It turns out the answer is not found in physical strength, not in income, but in what psychologists call emotional salary. Emotional salary. This is not a term I invented. Psychologists and behavioral researchers use it to describe the non-material rewards of a way of life. Freedom, meaning, connection, a sense of belonging. The thing that no paycheck can list, but that has real value, and sometimes determines the entire quality of your life, more than the number on your actual paycheck. Montana gives those who stay an emotional salary that nowhere in the world can replace, and I want to show you specifically what that is, not in philosophical language, but in things that are concrete, visible, and felt. Start with the simplest thing, the night sky. Montana has one of the darkest skies in America, almost no light pollution across most of the state. That means you can see the Milky Way with the naked eye, no telescope, no special conditions. You can see shooting stars without a notification from an app. You can lie down in the middle of a field in August and feel that the sky is not just the backdrop behind your life. The sky is the thing that is moving, and you are standing beneath it, part of it. This is the only luxury that no billionaire can buy for themselves alone and deny to others. You can own a Montana ranch, but you look at the same night sky that locals see for free from their backyard. And fly fishing. In Montana, fly fishing is not a sport in the sense you know. It is mobile meditation. You stand in the middle of the Blackfoot or the Gallatin or the Madison, the rivers that Norman Maclean wrote about, and a river runs through it. The rivers that still flow exactly as they did when Maclean was alive. And for 4 or 5 hours you don't think about email, you don't think about deadlines, you don't think about anything except water and fish and light changing minute by minute on the surface of the river. The line sweeps through the air in an ancient arc of motion, cool water touching your waders, a trout below that rock, or not, and both are okay. This is not entertainment, this is restoration, a kind of restoration that no mindfulness app can replace. But the most precious thing in Montana, the thing those who stay mention most when you ask why they haven't left, is not the scenery, not the fly fishing. It is silence. Not the silence of noise-cancelling headphones or a soundproofed room, but true silence. The kind where you can hear the wind through the grass from half a mile away. The kind where, when you sit down outside in the early morning, nothing competes with your own breathing. The kind that takes several minutes to adjust to, because your brain has grown so accustomed to background noise. Most of us have forgotten that kind of silence exists, not because it has disappeared, but because we have filled every empty
moment with noise and called that living. Beyond nature, community. In many small Montana towns, neighbors know each other's names, not names from a mailbox. They know your name, your family, your story. They know when you're not well because your car hasn't been seen on the road for a few days. Barn raising, the community tradition of helping each other build structures, repair homes, is not a historical custom here. It still happens. When someone is in difficulty, people don't organize an online fundraiser. They show up. They bring food. They bring their hands. No questions asked. No need for thanks. This is not nostalgia or illusion about a time gone by. This is functional living in places where you genuinely need your neighbors to survive the winter, in the literal sense.
And here is the most important thing. The thing that ties it all together and begins to answer the question opened at the start of the video. Those who stay in Montana are not the strongest or wealthiest of those who came. They are the ones who know themselves best. They know exactly what they need to live meaningfully. They know that for them, the night sky matters more than internet speed, that silence matters more than restaurant choices, that knowing a neighbor's name matters more than a networking event, that a winter of -40 is a fair trade for all of those things. And this is important. They know that not living in Montana is also completely fine if Montana is not the place you need, that self-knowledge, clarity about personal values is something no place can sell and no filter can replace. And I want to be clear about one thing before the final section. I am not romanticizing life in Montana. Those who stay know the price well. A hospital 3 hours away, winters of -40 degrees, unreliable internet, real loneliness that can arrive in the long months when snow falls and going nowhere becomes routine. They are not under illusions. The difference between those who stay and those who leave is not courage or strength. It is who knows exactly what they are trading and whether it is worth it for them. Montana is not better or worse than anywhere else. Montana is just a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see in it. That is completely okay. And here, after everything you have seen, is what Montana in the end taught me about myself. Montana is the 4th largest state in America with a population smaller than Columbus, Ohio. The natural filter, climate, isolation, hospital distance has no mercy for those unprepared. The Yellowstone Effect and Bozangeles have changed the socioeconomic structure in ways that cannot be reversed. Home prices up 80%, local workers losing the right to live in their own hometowns, billionaires buying the land mile by mile, and the Blackfeet Nation gradually losing access to ancestral territories. And those who stay, not stronger, not wealthier, they simply know themselves better. That is the entire difference. So who truly wins in Montana? Not the wealthiest. Money can buy land but cannot buy belonging. Not the strongest. The body adapts, but the mind is what determines whether you want to stay and whether you are staying for the right reason. The person who wins in Montana is the one who knows exactly what they need to live meaningfully and is willing to trade convenience, closeness to services, sometimes even medical safety, to have that. Montana is not a place to find happiness. Montana is a mirror. It reflects back who you truly are. The answer is always about you, not about Montana. Before you go, I have one question. Not a question about Montana, a question about you. Do you think you belong somewhere like Montana, and why? Leave one comment below. Your answer will say more about you than it does about Montana, and I read every single one. And if this video had value for you, one like helps me know that this kind of content is worth continuing. Subscribe so you don't miss the next documentary. I make these videos for people who want to understand the world in depth, not just see its surface.